Thank you, and good afternoon. Sorry a little late, but we had an opportunity to meet with leaders of the AAPI community downstairs, and it was heart-wrenching to listen to them. As many of you know, we originally planned to hold a car rally to thank our supporters. But given the recent days, events of the recent days, we didn't feel it was appropriate. So we canceled that rally. But we want our supporters to know we'll come back and hold that rally another trip. But today, we want to speak about something else. I said from the beginning of my campaign for president that we needed to come together, that we needed to unite as one people, one nation, one America. I said in my kickoff speech in Philadelphia, I said that very same thing when I spoke at Gettysburg. I said that in my inaugural address. And I believe with every fiber on my being, there are simply some core values and beliefs that should bring us together as Americans. One of them is standing together against hate, against racism, the ugly poison that has long haunted and plagued our nation. The Vice President and I, as I said, met a little bit earlier, just before this, with leaders from the Asian American community here in Georgia. We talked about Tuesday's mass shooting, about another example of public health crisis of gun violence in this country. 8 people killed, 7 women, 6 were of Asian descent. All fellow Americans, each one of them we mourn. Their families are left with broken hearts and unanswered questions. And the investigation is ongoing, and the Vice President and I are being regularly updated by the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI, working closely with Governor Kemp and Mayor Bottoms and local officials. But whatever the motivation, we know this. Too many Asian Americans have been walking up and down the streets and worrying, waking up each morning the past year feeling their safety and the safety of their loved ones are at stake. They've been attacked, blamed, scapegoated, and harassed. They've been verbally assaulted, physically assaulted, killed. Documented incidents of hate against Asian Americans have seen a skyrocketing spike over the last year, let alone the ones that happened and never get reported. It's been a year of living in fear for their lives, just to walk down the street. Grandparents are afraid to leave their homes. Small business owners targeted and gunned down. Attacks on some of the most vulnerable people in our nation, the elderly, low-wage workers, and women. In fact, Asian American women suffered twice as many incidents of harassment and violence as Asian American men. We're learning again what we've always known. Words have consequences. It's the coronavirus, full stop. The conversation we had today with the AAPI leaders and that we're hearing all across the country is that hate and violence often hide in plain sight. It's often met with silence. That's been true throughout our history. But that has to change because our silence is complicity. We cannot be complicit. We have to speak out. We have to act. In my first week in office, I signed an executive order directing federal agencies to combat this resurgence of xenophobia. The Department of Justice is strengthening its partnership with the AAPI community to prevent these crimes, in addition to its other work to take on violent extremists and domestic terrorism. I'm calling on Congress to pass and get to my desk the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. And the House just passed the reauthorization for the Violence Against Women Act, a law I authored more than 25 years ago, and is one of my proudest legislative achievements. I call on the Senate to swiftly pass it and get it to my desk. But for all the good that laws can do, we have to change our hearts. Hate can have no safe harbor in America. It must stop. And it's on all of us together, to make it stop. Something else should bring us together, and that is a belief in science. Science isn't something that should divide us. There's nothing political about it. There's nothing partisan about it. One of America's best examples of commitment to science is headquartered right here in Atlanta, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The CDC represents the best of this nation, brilliant minds, deep faith in science, and a strong commitment to public service. We came here to thank them for all the work they do, and especially the work they've done over the course of this pandemic. We owe them and their families our gratitude. We wanted to convey to them the absolute commitment to give them everything they need to do their work and get it done, free of politics and guided by science. And because of them, we're making real progress. We just met my goal of administering 100 million shots before my first 100 days in office. We did it in about 60 days. We're not stopping now. The American Rescue Funds, more vaccines, more vaccination centers, and more increase in testing. It's going to help us accelerate our nationwide effort to reopen schools safely. Last week, I directed all states, tribes, and territories to make all adults eligible to be vaccinated no later than May 1. But while this is a time of optimism, it's not a time for relaxation. I need all Americans to keep doing your part. Wash your hands, stay socially distanced, keep masking up as recommended by the CDC, and get vaccinated when it's your turn. None of this is political. It's all science-based. But now is not the time to let our guard down. That's science-based as well. In the last week, we've seen increases in the number of cases in several states. Things may get worse as new variants of the virus spread. That's why we need to vaccinate as many people as quickly as we possibly can, because it's the best thing we can do to fight back against these variants. We have to beat this virus. We have to, and we will. But we'll do it by setting aside politics and embracing science.